Recording stopped. Recording in progress.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this workshop or webinar on Zen photography. So I'm seeing people are still joining in, so we might give ourselves a minute or so to let people join in. We have quite a few of us already. I see Kirti, I see Manju. Hi, Kirti. Hi, Manju. Hi, Srinivas. Hi, Tapasya. Hi, Oppo. Um, Gopika is there. Adit is there. Ankit. Awesome. We're seems like we're going to be a good crowd today. So while people are joining in, so that I get an idea as to what is the length and the breadth of the nation that we are covering today, just type in the city you're dialing in from. Hi Sandeep, good to see your camera. Hi Aditya, good to see you switching your camera on. So just type in the city you are dialing in from today. Kota, wow. New Delhi. Mm-hmm. Okay, I never heard of Chhatrapati Sambhaji Nagar. Pune. Bangalore, hi Rajiv. Sumit is from Pune as well. Awesome. Ahmedabad. So Bangalore had been my home for 5, 6 years. Back when it was still retiree people city or relaxed city, as they would say. Um, Muthu is from Bangalore as well. Manju from Coimbatore, Ahmedabad. Awesome. So hope you guys had a very good Sunday. Um, and you're looking forward to your Monday, and there are no Monday morning blues. Hi, Vinod, you're from Delhi. Brilliant. Chennai, Vijayan. That is amazing. So we are covering, we've got quite a lot of people from South and from West. We got people from North. Hyderabad, okay, at least getting to the eastern coast side of it. Um, Kolkata, here we are. And that's what I was searching for. Welcome, David Priya. Cool, 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 cool. So how many of you are looking forward to Monday, tomorrow, working? I think it was a long weekend. Sandeep, you are looking forward to it? Awesome, awesome. Okay, just type me if you're looking forward to Monday, tomorrow, going back to work. Awesome, Sandeep. Yes, you guys must be having a ball of time in your job. A lot of us have Monday morning blues. Thankfully for me, not. Every day is a weekend now. Suraj, wow, you're in capital letter me, so you're absolutely looking forward to go back to work. Gopika, nice to know. Awesome. Maybe some of you understood the question wrong. SKD is saying, why can't we remove it from calendar? Yeah, then we'll have Tuesday morning blues. Anyway, good, 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 good. Okay, I think let's make a start. We are 4 minutes in. Let me share my screen and you guys tell me when you see, you're seeing the screen, right? Sandeep, give me, yeah, thumbs up. Okay, excellent. So we'll still let people joining. We are expecting a few more. So we are a nice little crowd here. So welcome again to this webinar on Zen photography. This is an introduction to a new way of looking at photography. And we'll talk about that as to what we are going to cover today. But before we do that, just a quick set of agreement. I don't like to call them as ground rules. Okay, another thing. Sometimes when I do this session for Indian team, I do it in English. Anybody who has an objection to me doing it in English, Hindi and English mix, just type OBJ so that I know if there are some people who are only looking at English. I mean, the intent is not to miss anybody. I will speak the whole stuff in English, but I'll keep using Hindi in between. So Suraj is saying English is fine. Awesome. Anybody who does not want English, just type, okay, Vijan, I understand that. So, so what we will do is I'll still cover the whole material in English, but I'll keep using Hindi phrases in between, just because sometimes it is fun. थोड़ा मजा आता है हिंदी में बात करके. But I'll definitely cover every concept in English. Good. Thank you for letting me know. I highly recommend that you switch on your cameras. Some of you have already done that. So thank you very much, Aditya, Sandeep, and Rajiv. It helps me because when I'm talking, it feels like I'm not talking to a wall, I'm talking to faces. So your reactions, sometimes the way you raise your brows tells me that it hasn't landed well. So I can probably spend a little bit more time on a particular concept. So it does work very well. So really appreciate if you can. And for some reason, if you cannot, I'll highly suggest that please keep your chat button handy so that you are able to respond to questions. So there are going to be quite a lot of questions. They're not questions to test anybody's knowledge because we're all here to exchange ideas. It is about inputs, the direction we are heading towards, if something is landing well or not. So make sure if you're not able to switch on your camera and you're not on, keep your chat button handy so that I know, how the things are landing with you. And of course, I mean, this is an absolutely smart group. We don't need to say that here, but just in case, we need to be courteous in chats because it's a group chat and everybody's here to either learn something or pick up some ideas of wisdom. So I have a set agenda, which I will be going through and I'll let you know in less than a minute or a minute in terms of what the agenda is, which I will cover. If we have any question on the topic that we are talking about, or stuff related to photography, please keep putting that in chat. I'll check every 5 to 7 minutes if there are questions, and I would love to answer them. And towards the end of the discussion, I will open it up for the questions on the mic, so you can unmute yourself. But during the presentation session, I will keep it through the chats so that we are not missing the flow. So really would appreciate when there is a question asked. And if you have a question at any point in time, just type in so that every 7 minutes I browse through and see if there are any questions that I can go through. The duration of the workshop is about 90 minutes. So if you can, spare that sort of time, that'll be brilliant. You have decided to spend this time with me. I'll do my best to make sure that it's worth your time. And at the same time, for you to get the best value of it, I would suggest if you can keep the distractions away and participate in the discussion that we're going to have. And of course, we'll have fun. That is the whole point of it, right? Great. Just a quick introduction. Some of you might have already checked my profile on Instagram or might have gone to my website. My name is Sanjeev Verma. I'm a coach and an art photographer. I specialize in art photography. I do story-based photographs. So I write stories and then I make a set of images, which I display, exhibit, sell, and I also do coaching, which is what we are here for in terms of ZEN Photography. So we'll soon get into that. I'm internationally published. I have been published in various magazines in Europe and Singapore and even in India. Featured in news media's article, have been doing photography for last 14 plus years. And I've been teaching for last 7 years, conducted workshops all over the world. I've lived in UK, Singapore, and now in India. I had 28 years of corporate experience. I worked with companies like Cisco Systems and Johnson and Johnson and Rolls-Royce, so in various global leadership roles. So people who are based in Bangalore, if you know Cisco Systems campus on the Sarjapur Road, the phase 1 of that campus was designed and built by me. So next time you pass through that, you can probably remember what I was doing. Now 51, living a nomad's life. I live in Goa in India. And pursuing my passion in photography. And this is the kind of work which I do. As I said, most of my work comes with a story. There is always, a background, a narrative to the pictures which I click, which I put up for exhibitions. I display, I sell, I publish them. I also have a background of filmmaking and I do acting as well. So I'm fully engaged in terms of the visual form of arts. So which is why my photography does get influenced quite a lot from the concepts of the filmmaking and those kind of stuff. So people who are based in Delhi, Gurgaon, I regularly do exhibitions with DLF in Gurgaon. In fact, I just finished one exhibition towards the end of March over there, and I'll be there back in another month's time. So if we are in the town at the same time, I'll be more than happy to catch up with you guys in person. The most interesting part for today. So, what's the agenda? So today the agenda is about going into the background of inspiring pictures. I mean, pictures or art photographs, art pictures. So we are going to decode as to what makes a picture an art picture. Now we are not going to go into the definitions of what is art, what is not, because it is artistic. So it is very subjective. It is very loose. But we will look at some of the components of it. And we will talk about what is the recipe for art photography. What are the components so we will talk about that. Now, this is not a webinar where we are going to do technical discussion. So it is gear independent. If some of you think, hey, I only have a phone camera, do you think this is the right thing for you? So it doesn't matter whether you have a phone camera or you are, having a DSLR or a mirrorless, you're expert in Photoshop or you're not, it does not matter because we're not talking technicals here. We are not talking, camera settings and light, 3-point lighting systems and those kind of stuff. This is about the content that you put in your picture. So like you see on the left side, at some point in time, somewhere in the head, we might have made a decision to capture this person in this sort of light and this sort of mood, in this sort of feel. That's what we call it as the visual content. So today we are going to focus more on creating the unique visual content and understand an approach where we can make learning photography much simpler than having to learn all the technical stuff in that. So two key elements in art photography, which we are going to talk about today, is visualization, which is basically seeing a picture in your head before you click it, whether it is half a second before you click it or 1 hour before you click it or 1 week before you click it. We are going to talk about visualization, because that is one of the crucial element in art photography, especially in photography in general anyway, but in art photography. And it is one of the subjects which is not taught in either photography schools or in online courses that you might have gone through already. So visualization and then exploiting the scene, which is basically looking at the elements of the picture, which is non-subject element, and how do we use them to communicate the story that we have visualized. So these two elements we are going to look at in a little bit of a detail. And then I will use an example of one of the photo shoot which I had done in past, where we will talk about the approach which I use from the ZEN photography perspective, and also share with you in terms of when I was learning photography, how this approach changed my perspective to photography, and I came to that side. And complete transparency, we are going to talk about 2 upcoming courses that we have to offer. I will be sharing that towards the end of the session. So I would absolutely love for you guys to join one or both of those courses, but that's something we will talk towards the end. Having said that, any questions about the agenda? So Ashwini, so a good question. You said when you're saying art photography, are you referring to fine art photography? Yes and no. Actually, I used to call this as a fine art photography, but I have understood, especially ever since I started to do these workshops in India, the understanding of fine art is very different from what the rest of the world thinks. So you can use these interchangeably, but it is about artistic photography, not something that we do for commercial purposes like covering events or doing commercial fashion shoots. Though the principles of art photography you can use for fashion photography as well or product photography as well. But this is not anything which is not commercial, which is meant for artistic value, is what we are covering in over here. And Adit, your question about, I think I answered that. Camera does not matter. You can click pictures with phone cameras too and wait, hold on for 5-10 minutes, and you'll probably get even deeper answer that gear does not matter, especially in art photography. Vinod, you said no. Okay, not too sure what does that mean? Manju, absolutely. Every part, every kind of story conveys, every kind of photography conveys story. So even though in this particular session, majority of the examples are going to be using people photography, because that's what I do. But there are examples which I'm going to share, which are non-people. So it could be from street photography, landscape. There are one or two examples on the product too. So the genre of photography does not matter. There is always a story to communicate, and it may not be the same story. It may not be the story of a film or a movie, but there is always a story. What do we mean by story is the emotional communication. When you look at the picture, and while looking at the picture, if you are feeling an emotion, there is a story underlying in that particular. Yeah, Ashwini, that is precisely what I'm saying as well. That, but I would love to take that offline if you want. There is no fixed definition. So fine art photography is anything that is not commissioned. And you're right in that particular perspective that you use your own imagination, and that's why the principles of fine art photography can be used in commercial photography as well. So again, I'm not getting into the definition. It's something which does not have commercial connotation, and it's subject to your interpretation where you can interpret a particular subject in many different ways. Thank you. So let's do a little bit of a look into artistic photography. Again, do not go strictly by the definition of artistic photography. The next section which I'm presenting, it has a different purpose to communicate. Individually, those photographs may not be called art photographs, but it is used to communicate a particular point, right? So imagine we are in a competition for food photography, and there are 4 entries in front of you, which you can see on your screen, number 1, 2, 3, 4. If you were the judges for this food photography competition, which picture would you consider deserves to win the food photography competition? Just put the number in there. Number 4, okay. 2, 3, 3, 3. Brilliant. So we have quite a lot of pancake fans, and probably that luster of maple syrup is catching everybody's imagination. 3, 3, 4, 3. Wow. So we have quite a bit of a competition between 3 and 4. Love the lighting, love the mood. And as we were talking about, there is a story as well. Now, what that story is can be subjective, but there is a mood. There is definitely an emotional connect. I mean, you salivate in your mouth looking at these food photographs. Second is also good. Absolutely, it's very simple. Um, just wanted to share Digital Camera World in 2020 held this particular competition, and this photograph won the food photography section. So this was considered the best picture in the entry for food photography. If you're surprised to see this picture in food photography, type surprised. And I mean, 2020 was one of the toughest period. Everybody knows globally. It was the COVID period. There were issues all over the world. These kind of queues might have been a regular scene, in a lot of villages, in a lot of, non-town kind of spaces. So somebody, the photographer, who picked this particular picture, considering this, as a worthy story to get into food photography, the idea behind it is what the people were appreciating at that particular perspective. So, it's the story element, though technically, I mean, these pictures, they absolutely surpass, the quality of the picture in over here, if you look at just the technical aspects of it, but it is the story behind that particular picture which catches fancy. Let's do another exercise. Portrait photographs. One of the favorite subject for all the photography enthusiasts. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Number one, which is one of the famous subjects for photographers, especially portrait, that wrinkled, shiny skin with smoke coming out of the nose and black and white. Or second, which is another take of an Afghan girl kind of an image, which is an iconic Steve McCurry image. And number three, which is a standard 3-point lighting setup from portrait studio portrait shoot, sorry. And number four is a portfolio kind of a picture. So which one do you think is going to be winning in this one? So okay, we've already gotten answers. Yeah, 1, 2, 1, 2, 2, 2, 2. Ashwini, I noted your point. Yes, it seems like travel generate to you, but that's where we are coming down to. Art is a very individual, subjective thing. People who are doing these kind of selections, whether it is, the competition judges or galleries who are looking to exhibit their art images, it's their perception which decides, what gets into which particular category. I mean, of course, the person who submitted the images, they had the creativity to go and look for it. And of course, if you were one of the judges, you probably wouldn't have agreed with it, but the judges over there did agree with him. Awesome, 2, 2, 1. Now, how many of you already know that this is not going to be the right answer because I have something up my sleeve differently? Worldphoto.org had second winner as these two entries. Now, these are not 4 pictures. These are 2 pictures. And it was a part of the portrait photography. And the concept behind this was where the photographer actually related the emotions of a teenager with the climatic situation on the planet, the global warming and all the stuff that we are doing to our planet in that particular perspective. So the intent over here was the 2 pictures put together where the tantrums or the mood swings of a teenager were linked with the mood swings the planet is showing given all the challenges that we're throwing at them. That was the concept behind this particular portrait photograph. So the 2 pictures combined as it is featured into that particular competition, and they were selected over millions and millions of pictures which are clicked like this. And that is one of the core messages over here. In terms of artistic photography, what people are looking at is having a compelling story. There is a narrative around that image. Now, that narrative does not need to be the same narrative with which the photographer clicked it, because that's the point of the art. People can make their different, perspective, different interpretations on that particular perspective, but there has to be a compelling story around it. And the second one is about unique visuals, the visuals which are not seen before. There are tons and tons of photographs once you go to the internet, which are in these categories, You will find millions of them. What people are looking for, especially depending on which kind of audience are you playing to, if it is art photography competitions or art exhibitions or galleries or any other places, even individuals, art collectors, they are looking for not seen before visuals. And in artistic photography, the creativity, it triumphs over technicality. Of course, you have to meet the certain quality standards, so you can't have completely blown out kind of images. While in some photography competitions, even they have one, like the Vogue conducts the pick of the day kind of a competition. But the general perception is you have to meet the basic quality criteria, but it is about having a compelling story and a unique visual, right? And if we look at, it's not just today. If we look at the inspiration from the yesteryears and even today, so a couple of pictures on the left and the right, Left is by Margaret Langer, which is The Migration, and the right one is the Henri Cartier-Bresson, which is The Jump in Paris. It's just unique visual. In the middle is coverage of one of the African demonstration where the lighting used for this particular photograph is just the lighting of the mobile phones. But the key message over here is none of these pictures, which are considered iconic photographs and they feature, very heavily into the art photography section, there are no fancy lights. There are no fancy settings. There are no complicated setups. It's all unique pictures, unique visuals, and powerful stories around them. Just emphasizing another point on this one. The picture on the left, Taj Mahal. Everybody knows, everybody sees. And the picture on the left is technically superb. It has the right composition element. It has good color, good saturation, good sharpness. Everything meets the quality criteria. How many of us would want to know who's the photographer? Because at least on the internet, there are 20,000 pictures like this on Taj Mahal. While on the right, it may not be giving the technical sharp image of Taj Mahal, but it's a unique perspective. At least we'll be tempted to know who has clicked this particular picture. It's a different view. And where does that different view come from? That different view is about the mindset of the photograph. The left side is actually following a script. The person, the photographer who's clicking this picture is following a script. Nothing wrong with that. There is absolutely nothing wrong with that. There's still a lot of market. There are still a lot of admirers who would like to take the picture on the left. But in terms of the artistic photography, the mindset of the photographer on the right is not about following a script. It is about exploring. It is about finding connections. It is about, looking at how the orange of the arch relates to the orange of the drape that the person is wearing in the backdrop of Taj. What the story is left to everybody's imagination. But in the art photography circle, those are the kind of visuals which are now, catching attention, grabbing attention of the people. And depending on what your purposes are, it's your choice which particular visual do you want to go in for. But in art photography circle, you will definitely find more takers for kind of pictures on the right rather than on the left. Now the thing is, the irony is, if we look at it, we all want to click pictures like Afghan Girl, which are very simplistic. It's actually now the task given, because I know the person who commissioned Mr. McCurry for this particular image, was supposed to be a war photograph. It's supposed to cover the aftermaths of war or the wreckage caused by the war. And it was the decision of the photographer, in case this Mr. McCurry, to actually point the camera towards a person who's saying, how dare you enter my space? Now, this picture does not have missiles, this does not have the wreckage caused by the bombs, but the story in her eyes tells everything. That is an artistic view of a war or aftermath of a war or somebody attacking some country. So we all value these kind of pictures. But if we look at the learning aspect of it, majority of the places where we go to learn, whether it is photography schools or is it online courses or anywhere else, it's following the script on the left, which is, different point lighting system, 100 poses and black or white background and expensive tripods and those kind of stuff. And that's the irony, which is what we are trying to resolve through ZEN Photography, where we are looking to see how do we think more pictures like the one on the right rather. Of course, there's nothing wrong in terms of learning the technicalities on the left, but the whole idea is to use whatever technical knowledge we have used. हमने जो भी कुछ सीखा है, जितना भी कोई चीज सीखा है, उसको कैसे यूज करें to create a compelling, unique visual. Right? Ashwini, a good question. I'm not too sure if the human element wasn't there. We can't talk about what element wasn't there, but the fact that there is an element in over there. The point over here is it's a decision of the photographer to include certain elements or not. And the idea is to convey that particular story Somebody used human element. Somebody could have used, a wreckage of a house or a broken frame of a family picture lying on the ground, which is the aftermath of a bombing, something like that. It's a photographer's decision. So now the question is, how do we learn to create unique visuals? If we look at the market view, they will tell you buy more gear, learn more technical stuff. If you look at the picture on the left, which is, a typical a slow shutter speed kind of a visual, um, people tell us buy expensive filters, buy expensive tripods or cameras and full frames and, expensive lenses and all that, and to create visuals, which there are 20,000 other visuals on the internet. No uniqueness in it. Still, there is a market for it. Absolutely. No worries about that. But we haven't seen any of these kind of pictures appearing in art galleries, appearing in collections of artistic forms, in big price houses. They still get sold. They still get sold on many places for $1 to $5 to $10 to $50 kind of pictures, but nothing goes for $1,000. Nothing goes for $2,000. So in terms of the art collection value, it's a visual which has been done by many. And the point is, even if we go by this particular route, the technical settings and the dollars which are invested, they make the photography so overwhelming that it becomes actually a bit of a overwhelm. It becomes a bit of a burden for people to get into photography in that perspective. So now let's look at some of the other artistic pictures. So these are the pictures clicked by Magdalena. She's a person I have interacted with on the internet. I do not know her personally, but her work on the floral photography, especially chrysanthemum, and there is a whole series which she has done. It's all clicked with one camera, one spray bottle, and a love for colors. The way she sees colors when she visits, gardens is just unique to her. It's, you will visit a chrysanthemum garden. If I'm in the same garden as this one, I probably would not even see a good picture in over here. But in her head, the pictures, the colors which she sees, which she can manipulate later also. Of course, she does manipulation on that. But the idea is, it is about creating that uniqueness in the visual, which does not require heavy investment in gear or techniques in capturing those pictures. Danny Diamond, some of you might have already heard about him. If you're watching a lot of YouTube videos, he's one of the famous New York fashion photographer. And I've learned some stuff from him as well. He, for first 4 or 5 years of his career, he did actual high-end fashion shoots just with one camera, one reflector, and his love for alleys. He's considered the king of alleys, the small little streets, the back streets of New York, where he clicks these pictures, and he's amazing in terms of how he manages low light kind of a situation. But it's clicked with one camera, one reflector, and for those who know the lenses, he used to click with 85 mm f1.4, one single lens with Nikon. And he used to, walk with this one little small bag and reflector for these high-end fashion shoots, where he was questioned, "Are you sure this is all the gear that you have?" And he did say, "Yeah." And he created these kind of pictures, which went into a lot of art sections. And this is one of the examples where, artistic elements were used in commercial photography. And he actually became one of the most sought-after fashion photographers in New York. Another person, Daria Gromova. She just uses one camera. And of course, she loves colors. And her passion of connecting with kids, and she has this ability to bring these unique expressions, these amazing little stories out of kids. And it just brings a different perspective to the photographs. That's what is her specialty. So she doesn't use any fancy gear or any fancy lighting and all that kind of stuff. Just the cameras and the stories in her head, and she captures these amazing children images. My time to gloat a little bit. These are the pictures which did not even use a DSLR, or it's clicked with phone camera. And these pictures have been published. And one of these pictures, the one on the left, is on exhibition as well. So these are not even clicked with, as I said, the DSLR or an expensive gear. So even phone camera is enough. So there are tons and tons of examples in the world where people are creating unique visuals. The knowledge of photography is same for everyone. It's the same aperture setting, it's the same shutter speed and lighting and knowledge of it and the colors, everybody knows. But if you look at these visuals, they're all unique to the individual. They're all unique to the mindset of the person who is clicking these photographs, right? Just to showcase, I mean, these are some of the works which I do with my camera, and I shoot also with one camera, and I've got three lenses, but 75% of my images are used with just one lens, which is 50 mm f1.4. And these are my phone camera works. So just harnessing on that particular point, that gear is not important in photography, especially in art photography. Yes, you have to meet certain technical criteria, but as long as the pictures are compelling, as long as the story comes out or the emotion comes out of it, you can create artistic images regardless of the gear that you are using. Before I get into the recipe for art photography, anybody has any questions? Uh, yes, megapixels do play a little bit of a part, especially if you want to blow up the print of that image to a larger size. But majority of the time, it is about the optical quality of the lenses which they are using in phone cameras. So, Manju, I'm currently using Sony, but I used to use Nikon, so quite a lot of my portfolio is filled with Nikon photos. But I'm using Sony now. It has nothing to do with the mirrorless versus DSLR. The autofocus system in Sony is good because I can't rely on my eyes anymore for sharp focus. So I need a good autofocus system. That's why I switched from Nikon to Sony. And mobile is iPhone. So I use iPhone 11 and iPhone 15. I've been an iPhone user, sorry, I don't have 15, I have 14, but iPhone 11 and iPhone 14 is what I've used. I have clicked with Android. I have clicked with Samsung. I have clicked with OnePlus 70 and OnePlus 5T as well. So yeah, it's a mix. Good questions. So again, it's not a very hard recipe for art photography, but in terms of the approach which I cover, which I teach in my photography sessions, these are the four steps I talk about. One being the visualization, which we're going to talk about very shortly. So it's about seeing subjects uniquely. It's about seeing stories, the story which you want to communicate, regardless of what the subject is. It could be. And then second is exploiting the scene, which is first is the making of the picture in the head. The second is using what you have available in front of you. How do you use that? How do you use those things to create interest, to create attention, and to translate your vision into actual photograph? The third is the technical part, which is the capturing the shot. So yes, there is a bit of an artistic element, which is about framing. Yes, there is an element of lighting and shadow, but it is just capturing the image to the best ability possible. And then fourth is about adding punch, which is a fancy name I've given to editing. But the whole point in the editing is basically to match what is captured in the camera to what you actually saw at the particular scene when you were clicking the picture. So it's matching that particular gap. Now, how many of you think that editing is good and should be done or required for every photograph? Absolutely, Rajiv. All these modern cameras, any cameras which you see for last 2 or 3 years, they are absolutely brilliant in terms of capturing. It doesn't matter whether it is iPhone or Samsung or OnePlus. So yes, I'm already getting yeses that editing is absolutely essential. The reason for that is, I mean, there is a little bit of a negative connotation about editing. A lot of people think, oh, this picture has been photoshopped. So what? I mean, again, especially for art photography, the challenge is, even if you pick up the best camera in the world, and I'm talking about Hasselblads of the world, which are, $20,000, $40,000 kind of cameras, even those cameras cannot match up to what your eye can see on the scene. There's a thing called dynamic range. It's just one of the factors. I mean, there are other factors and technical factors. But there's one that particular factor called dynamic range. Hasselblad, the best of the cameras in the world, have 16 stops of dynamic range, while your eye can actually see from 20 to 23 stops of dynamic range. So even if you get the best cameras in the world and you do the best lighting in the world, you still cannot capture what your eye can see. Editing software comes in handy over there, which bridges the gap between what your camera can capture versus what your eyes have seen in terms of at the scene. So starting point of any artistic photo is visualization. The point is, if you are able to see a picture in your head, the chances are more that you will be clicking a unique picture. The chances are more. If you have seen, somebody else's picture, the chances are more that you will be replicating that picture, which is what we do, and it is absolutely fine. हम बहुत सारे बड़े-बड़े आर्टिस्ट की पिक्चर्स देखते हैं, उनकी पिक्चर्स को देख के इंस्पायर होते हैं और फिर उनको कॉपी करते हैं, which is fine. हम सब लोग ऐसे ही सीखते हैं. That's how we start to stretch our limits a little bit more. But the idea is visualization is a concept where we can start to think original ideas in our head. Let's first talk about what is visualization. So in terms of visualization, there are tons of definitions, and I'm not getting into Cambridge Dictionary or any of those dictionary. At a simplistic, in a photography sense perspective, there are only two things about visualization. One, if you go to a scene, what part of the scene makes you pick up your camera? Like this is a picture of one of the airport terminals where you have multiple elements. You walk into this particular scene, you see, these bright orange lights, which look very exciting. You could actually just click a picture of that. You could, see this fancy colored board. You could see this large window, large glass where the window light is coming in. You could click pictures right next to it. There is this nice little shop where this person is making coffee, taking orders, and talking to the background person. Now, which part of this particular picture, which part of this particular scene would you go to click that picture? A lot of people, and this is something I get a lot from street photographers, that, hey, we don't think about these pictures. We just go there and we just click what comes in front of us. Absolutely fine. You might not realize it. That still means you're still subconsciously doing visualization, because you're making a split-second decision of going to a particular place, of going to a particular corner, which captures your attention, which in a sense, you're converting it into a photograph. So in this particular picture, I went to click this. I could have, somebody else could have clicked click the pictures of these lights or these windows. But for me, my internal visualization, I was loving the interaction which this guy was having with the front-end customers and with the back-end staff for making the coffee. And the expression in the eyes. And this picture, by the way, has been clicked with mobile phone. So it's not a camera picture. This decision of going to a particular section, it comes from developing that visualization muscle. It's not like I did not have an instruction manual where it say, okay, go to a terminal and spot a coffee shop and turn to the left or right. It doesn't come with instruction. It comes with the instinct. That's what the first kind of visualization is, where you go into a scene and you make a split-second decision, or maybe a longer decision, to go to a particular part of the scene that captures your attention. That is visualizing picture in your head. Or the second way of visualization is that you are given a subject. Now that subject could be a person, could be a product, could be landscape or anything. Now, if you are given a subject, what story would you put them in? So this is a person, if I want to click their picture and they say, click my picture, how do I make a decision? Should I click their picture inside this restaurant? Or should I take them into a garden and click a portrait in a garden? Or should I take them into their personal safe space and actually get them to emote their internal thoughts and be a little bit sensual in terms of their perspective? These decisions of either shooting them in the restaurant or taking them to the garden or taking them to their personal safe space where they can express sensuality comes from visualization. And those are the kind of decisions which everybody has their own process. My process is I do interactions with the clients or the people who are posing in front of the camera. Um, it's their life stories from where I actually make decisions as to what is the right setup, what is the right story I want to put them in, what is the story I want to get out on a camera. But this comes from stretching your visualization muscle. In fact, when I'm going to share one of the photo shoots example, I'll stretch on this particular point a little bit more. But those are the two crucial elements of visualization. If you have a subject, what story are you going to put that subject in? Or if you do not have a subject, you're walking into a scene, what part of the scene do you get drawn towards? That is what determines visualization, right? So these, as I said, are split-second decisions. I mean, the picture on the left, and this is the person who was taking a personal class from me in terms of learning mobile phone photography. So the picture clicked on the right is clicked with a mobile phone as well. So you're walking. This is the Jahangir Art Gallery in Mumbai, where we were going in over there. So you see there are tons of stuff there. There are windows. There are lights on the ceiling. There is art on the wall in the alleys, and there is a whole perspective. You can take a wide shot like the one on the left, but how do you make a decision that I feel that, I want to capture that nostalgia, the thinking, a person right next to the window with that light shining as a rim light onto that particular person is a decision which whether you take it in a split second or in split hour, completely depends on you and the person. But those decisions is what makes your pictures unique. Those decisions is what makes your picture go into the artistic value where you can start to draw in that perspective. The more pictures you can see in your head, the more options you can see in your head, the more chances are that you will be clicking or thinking a unique picture which would draw people's attention, which will draw people's interest into that. Ashwini, it is a personal choice. As you said, if you follow a representative straight style of photography, then editing is not needed. As I said, it's a personal choice. What we have seen is I haven't seen any art photograph which has not been edited, which has not been put through an editing software. Even the commercial photographs, I work with tons of photographers all over the world. I haven't seen an unedited picture being taken into either a commercial section or into an artistic section. But it is a personal choice. I don't force it. But the whole point is to remove the connotation about editing. The editing is not about manipulation of the photos. Editing is about bridging the gap between what your camera captures versus what your eye see. If what your eye see is already captured in your camera, fantastic, job done. But if it doesn't, you have to use editing. And Sanket, yeah, I am into Lightroom and Photoshop. I use a mix of them. There are certain changes which I make in Lightroom, and there are certain changes which I make in Photoshop. So I use a combination of that in my workflow. Any other question? So in terms of talking about the visualization, it, in a very simplistically put, it is ability to imagine. Imagination, which is limited by our current vision. If our current vision is limited by the pictures which we have seen, nothing right or wrong, we will keep on, repeating the pictures which we have seen. But if we develop our visualization muscle, we will be able to think pictures which are beyond what we have seen, right? So, and one of the most thing is, as I said, when our database, our mental database is going by the pictures that we have seen, so you tend to go for easier choices, which is basically just replicating the look that we have done. And the reason why a lot of time we do not expand our visualization or we do not expand into multiple choices of the pictures that we can have is because we tend to compare a lot. Am I clicking a picture which is, captured by that famous photographer, or am I clicking a picture which is right? Am I getting the silhouette right and all that kind of stuff? And it's basically being in that comparative. Am I doing it right? Am I following that particular thing? That is the kind of mindset which stops us to stretch our visualization muscle. Nothing right or wrong if that is what is serving our purpose. But for majority of the art photographer, that is a resistance, that is a limitation which we need to get across. It's part of our 3-day challenge course, which I will talk about towards the end, where we work on certain exercises where we stretch our visualization muscles so that we can think images which are beyond the obvious choices which are presented to us in that perspective. And also, as we talked about, spontaneity, a lot of people say, hey, I'm just being spontaneous and I'm just clicking what comes in front of you. Basically, if what comes in front of you, you're trying to click it, you're already a minute late because your response and the ability to take your camera out, आप already वो shot को 1 minute बाद ले रहे हो. But if you're capturing the moment, that means you're already visualizing those kind of pictures. Whether you're aware of it or not, that's a different discussion, but the visualization is already working. Our job is in photography, especially when we're learning photography, is to stretch that particular muscle so that we can think different ideas. I mean, here, the picture on the left, nobody has given an instruction on, you should use a bottle or a half-filled bottle to capture a sunset. You only get a small little window. It's just your mind. I mean, it could be a story of, packing the sunset in a bottle and taking it with you on a home. Nobody says that's the right story, but you're getting the idea. These are the kind of split-second decisions which come when you are thinking left, right, and center, and not just sticking to one particular, way of clicking photographs. The second part, which we wanted to talk about, is once you've done the visualization, this element is finding elements in the scene, exploiting the scene to emphasize your story. So here, again, if you have a subject which is already chosen, again, could be any subject, and the same lighting condition, what elements would you use in the scene which will be part of your photograph? Now, in this particular case, we went into one particular garden. The garden had many elements. It had flowers, it had bushes, it has pavements and stuff like that. And the intent was, it was part of one of the artistic fashion shoot we were doing, and the theme they were shooting was on nostalgia. The theme they were shooting on was reflection, being a bit nostalgic about that thing. So what elements, what scene do we look at to include in our pictures? We chose a scene which is based on the step. The water body in front is a very smallish water body. It's just a shot with a little bit of a telephoto lens to narrow down the view. But the intent was this particular part of the scene, the lines of the step, and her sitting on the step, actually emphasize the story way more than what it does in over here. I mean, this is not even a technically good picture, but just to demonstrate the point of once you start looking at your scene, you have to make a decision, what is the right spot? A lot of time we make that decision based on the lighting, that where you get the right light, you click that picture, which is absolutely essential too. But more important also is how would the elements in that scene would emphasize the story which you are trying to portray. This is another example. I mean, this is one of the small little towns, which is, we didn't know until I went in there. It is a town in Rajasthan, which is actually a heritage city, but it's a heritage which is getting lost. People are not, taking care of it. There are tons of architecture, old architecture. It was one of the richest town back in 1850s, as documented. And it's actually falling to the pieces. And we were covering a story on that. It is one of the minaret where a few of us photographers, we were clicking this particular picture, and some of us went away saying, we've captured this particular minaret. It's done. Let's go. But from my particular perspective, the intent of the prominence of this structure, and the element of this being lost, I wasn't happy with that. I mean, we just shifted the perspective. This is the water body over here. So just changing the angle perspective, using this as a reflective mirror, which is now adding to that story. We still have the remains of that minaret. And by the way, these pictures are clicked with mobile phones. They're not clicked with camera. And once, as we call it, as a photographer's luck, when you are working the scene, you do get lucky. I didn't plan for this cow to come in. I mean, the cow just came in over there and gave me a beautiful pose. I wish the cow was on the right side looking to the left, but you can't really direct a cow. or I would think in that particular perspective. But as I said, there's no manual which will tell you, hey, go to a particular scene, take 20 steps to the left and right and find a water body and all that. You just work with the story in your head as to what is it that you want to bring, what emotion do you want to bring, and then you look at different elements of the scene and see which scene would you like to include and make prominent in your picture that conveys your message very effectively. Another example, using a portrait example in this particular case, this person wanted, again, a little bit of a picture of, walking down the memory lane, kind of a perspective. But, again, lighting is fine, it's good, but the busy background, the decision to include those busy branches in the background versus just 6 feet or 8 feet away from this particular picture, there's a row of pillars which could be used, and they add much more emphasis to the story that we wanted to convey. The walk down the lane becomes much more clearer and appealing, and the elements, the parallel lines and the patterns of these pillars are adding to the background of that particular story and communicating the story that we wanted to communicate in much more effectively. So it's the scene, actually, the elements outside of whatever your subject is, of course, mixed with lighting, that helps you convey the story. Now, the picture on the left, extreme left, is actually the capture done by one of the bloggers who was sitting with me in one of the cafes in Goa. He loved the hot chocolate in this particular cafe, and he wanted to put a picture. He clicked that picture on the left, and he said, I want everybody to, try this hot chocolate, and I want to put it in over there. And I'm like, this looks yuck. How many of you think that the picture on the left is not inspiring? Type no for anybody to try hot chocolate in that cafe, right? And the picture on the right, I'm not saying this is an art photograph, but I'm trying to emphasize on that particular perspective of how can you use the elements of the scene. So picture on the right, the window was already existing. He could see that, but he didn't take a decision to include that window into the picture. There was, the lighting outside of the window was available. He could see that as well. And these pictures are literally 15 or 20 seconds apart. And you can see the lip mark on both the cups right in there. So they're literally 15 seconds apart in that particular perspective. But the overall ambience on the right, I feel, if you agree with me, type yes. On the right will do a much better job to tell people, hey, come and taste this hot chocolate because I found it yummy. If you agree, type agree. Right? I'm so glad I'm having some people who resonate with me. Thank you, Wasim. Thank you. Thank you, David Priya. And as I said, it's the same subject. It's the same lighting. It's the same condition. It's two people sitting, 1.5 feet away from each other and clicking the same subject. Just the way you decide to include different elements in your scene can make a huge impact in the story that you're trying to communicate. Any question before I get into one of the photo shoot example and we take a look at that? Any questions until now? Mahesh, I love. I could, if I could Swiggy one coffee over to you, I would have wanted one. I'm right now in one of the towns in Punjab, but yeah. Yes, SK. The picture, this picture is a mobile photograph. This is actually taken by camera, but can be taken with a mobile phone. This is mobile phone. This is again with camera. So it's mixture. So again, apologies as I'm using a people photograph example in over here. But as I said, the concept of this will work with anything, any subject that you want to do. So this was a photo shoot which I was commissioned to do a portrait for her where she wanted to, depict her desires. I mean, she came from a very humble background and she was very proud of where she has arrived at this point in time. There's a sense of achievement, there's a sense of pride, and she wanted a portrait that she could print on a canvas and hang it in her living room. That was the assignment. She wanted a bit of a painting look, which is what I do, but she wanted to keep it more towards picture side, the photograph side, than the painting side, so that it could look like a photograph. She didn't want very painting style look for herself. And of course, she always told me about, she's not decided whether it should be Indian dress or Western dress. So with that sort of a background, give me a couple of ideas as to what kind of picture would you think? What kind of pictures would you click for her, which will show her coming from her humble background? And guys, get me, there's no right or wrong answer. It's not a test. It's just basically getting to see, how creatively we can think. So what kind of picture would you want to click, which shows her feeling pride of where she's come in terms of achievements, starting from very humble beginnings? Um, Rushant, just keep that question with you. We'll answer that in a minute. It's not about you can imagine the picture in split second. You make decisions in split second if you're doing street photography, because in street photography, the stuff is happening. I mean, the scene changes very quickly. If you're doing stage, you have more time, which is why I say whether you take that decision in split second or split hour or split week, completely up to you. But especially in street photography, those decisions have to be pretty quick. So type in if you have any ideas of what kind of pictures would you click. Or what would you consider in terms of deciding what kind of pictures, what kind of portrait should we click, which shows her coming from humble beginnings and showing a sense of achievement for herself. Okay, let me start with my thought process. So we didn't have those days artificial intelligence. These days I do use artificial intelligence to come up with a mood board. So one of the concept was we could show a queen in her personal space. Now, of course, at that point in time, we were just talking visuals in terms of Pinterest, which later on, the kind of picture which we came out with in her first photo shoot, she was so happy that she commissioned, 2 more shoots with me. So these are results of the future shoots, but it was part of the discussion in the first shoot where we could show the person wearing a Western dress in her personal space. That was one of the ideas. Second could be a queen visiting her past, going into the nature and feeling nostalgic, connecting with the nature, connecting with her roots in that particular perspective, and thinking of where she has come. We also went a bit philosophical where, it was basically making her own tune in the royal dresses was one of them. On the right, being a little bit of a fairy tale story, because that was one of the words which she used while we were having discussions, where it felt like she's getting blessed from the heavens with the flower petals showering on her. And the one in the middle is basically she has choices to be simple, which is what denoted by white, but at the same time, she has the passion and the drive, which is denoted by the color red in terms of her choices. And finally, we settled on a grounded queen, which is appreciating her treasure. So it's basically appreciating what she has accumulated in the form of, jewelry that she has, and just connecting with her roots with the Indian dress. So that was the ideas that we finally settled on. So this was not the final picture that we clicked, but this was the part of the visualization where we showed different options, we discussed different mood boards, and finally agreed on the concept that she felt connected with. That was the whole point. So next comes, exploiting the scene, which is our step 2 in that particular perspective. So what we had was we were shooting at her place. We had a corner which could look a little bit royal if we could, change some settings in over there. But we had a little bit of a challenge situation in terms of there is a mirror at the back which is reflecting everything, and there were fluorescent lights which were not really giving that impact artistic photograph kind of a thing. There was a couch which could look royal, but we had her daughter with a lovely smile. She was posing for us while she was getting ready. So the first thing was we fixed up the lighting and decided, what corner of the space would work in terms of bringing the story out. We wanted a little bit of a darkness to depict the humble beginnings, to depict the past, which she's probably not that proud of, but coming to the light part. So we wanted that sort of a setup. So we switched off all the lights, just used the window light. We added a little bit of a fill on the right, just to give more details on the other side of the photos. But even if we didn't, this picture would have worked. And then it was about emphasizing the story. So the choice of gear, which we talked about in the capturing of the shot, we had to use a lens which is a little bit more close in, because with a wider lens, we were getting window, which was a bit more distracting and it was not giving that feel of nostalgia. वो feeling नहीं आ रहा था, वो बहुत सारे element उसमें include हो रहे थे. So we had to go in a little bit of a tighter thing, so that the focus is on that person. We don't have to tell the viewer as to what is it that we want to emphasize on. It should become evident in terms of what the part of the story is. And then the shot, I mean, of course, from the technical perspective, if somebody wants to know the technical settings, that's what the technical setting was. But what we do in Zen photography is we simplify it. We simplify it in a sense that if you are clicking this kind of a picture with a mobile phone, you just focus on the bright side of the face, which is what your focus point or the emphasis point is, and then you dial down the exposure to give that feeling of darkness, because typically most of the auto mode cameras, DSLR included, and phone cameras, they are calibrated to overexpose the image, so you have to work towards darkening that image a little bit. Or if you're using a DSLR, you can do an exposure compensation of -1. But the intent is the technical setting, once you have the picture in your head, becomes much easier to implement. You don't have to learn a lot of settings. You don't have to remember a lot of technical jargon or information. You just go by your gut feel or the kind of feel that you're looking to create in that particular picture. And that was so is it a final shot? We had another idea, because the mindset of me was she is appreciating her treasures. And if she has a beautiful daughter, how could she not be part of the treasure? So that's what finally we clicked the picture. It was not part of the decision making, but since the mind was, there is another treasure with her, there is another person. And the story became, you're appreciating the physical or material earnings that we have done, but at the same time, it's also that gentle tap on her shoulder and the smile of her kid, which is also the part of treasures that she has accumulated. It was this emotional connection which made her say, okay, I want to execute all the other ideas that we also talked about. So we ended up, doing 3 photo shoots rather than one. Now, this is also part of our 3-day challenge. I mean, once you click, so this is a picture clicked by the camera, so straight out of camera, no change done. It's a little bit warm. It's a little bit, there are certain elements which are distracting, especially the window at the back is a little too bright. So one is a simplistic editing. I call it as a slider edit, which most of you, if you know Lightroom, so the editing which we can do on the sliders. So just 4 to 6 sliders, if we manipulate them, you can get a little bit more pleasing effect on your eye. And quite a lot of time, that is a good to go kind of a picture. Or you can, take it a little bit to the next level, which is called the basic art editing, not advanced art editing, where, I play around with the color to give a certain sense of, so here, I was doing with a little bit of more magenta-ish kind of a background with slightly more yellowish orange, the feeling. So there is a theory behind the colors which you use, which is what we cover in the deep dive course, which I'll share with you a little in a little while. And the end result which I presented to them was, and again, I'm not saying this is how you have to do it, because these are artistic pictures. So this picture was presented along with a poem which I wrote for her, and that became part of her, the decoration or the walls in her living rooms, where it is about her achievement and also the words which are covering the narrative along with that. And that was the whole process. Started with, first of all, exploration, where we explored different little ideas, and then visualizing the shot that we finally worked upon, capturing the shot, and then enhancing it to suit the color of the walls and the emotion that the person want to feel, associated with in that perspective, which is the foundation of the Zen way of learning photography, which is about exploring your passion. What I mean by passion is basically like some of you were talking about, what if we are clicking pictures of products or different things? It's all about what you connect with, because the chances are what you connect with are the areas, are the subjects where you will come out with the unique visuals. You put a camera in my hand and ask me to click, amazing landscape pictures, I probably would struggle. It's not something I like to experience landscapes. I do not like to capture them. I do capture street because I am driven by stories. I'm driven by stories and thoughts which people keep in their head. So it's not just people picture. I don't click normal portraits. I click portraits where people have some hidden story, something that is going on in their head, something that they are keeping it away from the rest of the world, and they're keeping it in their personal space. That's my area. So my chances of coming out with unique visuals in that area are much higher than somebody who's clicking people's picture as part of their job. So exploring your passion is one of the key steps, and there are certain exercises which we do in the Zen way of learning, where we actually get you connected with your passion side, and then develop your visualization muscles so that you can think different variety of pictures, different stories that you can put on canvas, and then just learn enough technical stuff to capture those scenes and not get yourself bogged down with tons of different camera settings and lighting. Of course, it is good to understand as you grow, but the primary object is to put unique visuals on the table first and then learn as you grow. And last is enhancing to add punch, because we talked about what your camera captures is less than what your eyes see, and what your eyes see is physical eye see is also less than what your mind's eye see. So bridging that gap is something that creates the punch, that creates that power in those particular things. So, okay, let me see some questions. She's zooming with a wide lens. Will it work the same magic, Rajiv? Though it is a technical question, but I will answer. Um, no, it doesn't do that. Depending on how wide you're going, because the wide lens does introduce distortion. So that is a little bit of a balance which you have to see. You can create a similar kind of picture, but emotionality would be slightly different. I mean, it's a slightly more technical subject, so I'm happy to take it towards the end once people have asked the question. So, Manju, you are saying with models we can create and convey the story through our photographs, but how to convey stories while we take a photograph of nature of landscape? So, very, very interesting question. Now, my point is, when you are taking a picture of a landscape, what's the emotion you're feeling? Are you feeling a sense of calmness? Are you feeling a sense of wow? Are you feeling a sense of doom and gloom? Whatever is the emotion you are feeling or trying to convey, that forms the underline of the story. Not every story has to come with, here's a person who lived here and did this and did that. Story is emotion. So whatever emotion you are feeling when you're clicking a landscape picture, translating that into your picture becomes your story. Now, I am going to talk about, the three levels of courses which you have designed in our Zen photography class. So this particular process, we keep this process intact, where we are looking at visualization, ideation of our shooting, and then capturing with bare minimum technical details, and then enhancing at a simplistic level without getting into the technical jargons. That being the overall process, we offer courses at three levels. So one being Kickstarter, where over 3 days, we actually do a taster of this whole process of how do we do the ideation and how do we exploit the scene and how do we, work the edit to make it look compelling. The purpose of this 3-day course is to actually stretch your visualization muscle so that you can start to think visuals which are outside of your normal range or realm of thinking. So it's almost like a taster course in terms of Zen photography. And then we offer deep dive photography, which is over 4 weeks, where we do one session a week. We will be talking about this particular course just now, but that is about taking your photography to the next level. So what we call it as it's producing professional level results, but in a simplified way, not going through the technical overwhelm. The professional one is something that we only offer to the participants in Kickstarter and Deep Dive, because these are people who become my associates, part of the Zen photography community. There are quite a lot of assignments which I do where I involve other photographers. So it's a course which I carefully offer it to the people who are into that Zen way of doing photography. So first, I'm going to talk about the deep dive, which is a 4-week course, which is a little bit more into the artistic element of photography. So this is for people who are looking to create a portfolio of artistic pictures, whether you're looking to sell your work at certain spaces, or you're looking to do your own exhibition or send it to for photography competition. So you're looking to create a series of images and not stopping at just one. That's what this particular course is designed for. And it is looking at producing professional level work. Now, again, I'm not saying after 4 weeks, you will become a Rembrandt starting from absolute novice, but you will get to know what it takes to produce professional level results in that perspective. So getting into a little bit more detail, we spend the first 2 weeks onto the shooting part of it, the first one being the planning, the deciding on the lighting, the expressions, if it is a people photograph, or the overall mood and the theme and the camera angles. The week 2, we talk about the composition, framing, and actually getting it right. So the week 1 is before you actually do the shooting, what sort of armory you need to carry with yourself. And second is actually the time on the camera. Third week, we talk about on the editing. Fourth is actually an assignment. So just to share with you, so different kind of pictures. I mean, if you look at these pictures, whether it is a natural light on a kid, whether it is a managed light or an artificial light or a portrait, whatever the scenario is, how to think different moods, how to think different dramas, and how to plan. I mean, what sort of gear to carry, what sort of settings to actually work on, and how to decide on the lighting. How do you leverage on the lighting which is available on the scene versus what you're carrying with yourself. On week 2, we're talking about what we talked about, how do we find the right spot of the scene? How do you create that picture which, creates harmony between the subject and the scene that you have selected? So it's basically, as I said, just splitting the whole photo shoot process into the pre-work and the actual work on the production, whether it is landscape or product or street in that perspective. And third is the week 3 is about editing, where you take what you get out of the camera and just with simple manipulations of colors and certain brightness and dodging and burning and those kind of techniques, where you can create that mood. So it's not about bettering the picture, it's about creating the mood and that emotional connect that you want to convey in that particular picture. And week 4, like the one which you've seen over here, it is one of the assignment which is many faces of smile. This is a street photograph project which we did in Indonesia, where we wanted to capture different interpretations of smile. So not just just spreading your lips wide. It is about, smile could be somebody taking a break from their work, having a smoke, or somebody or 2 kids having an anticipation of food, or a small kid thinking about a freedom, making a flight of fancy, or a mother cooking a food for the kid. So it's actually, having a whole assignment of a photo series, and then, planning the whole set of images, and then creating the final product from ideation to shooting to editing, and finally presenting it, which is print worthy or exhibition worthy. And today we are making an offer. The course is starting on April 25th. So we've already got quite a few participants on this one. It is going to be a small group. It is going to be a group of less than 10 people. So we're offering it for INR 10,000 rupees, or 9,900 to be precise. So I offer as a bonus, as a shoot prep, as a separate session. So we call it as a week 0. So week 0 starts on April 25th, where we talk about what's the gear. So it's not about, you have to buy this particular gear. It is about how do you exploit whatever gear you have, what kind of pictures you can get, what's your genre, because we do get people from different walks. So somebody could be portrait photographer, somebody could be street or landscape. So we create different groups of different genres. And then we talk about actual shoot planning or gear planning or actual preparation for work in week 0. That's a bonus session which we give. And then over the 4 weeks, we do 4 sessions, so one weekly call. But then during the week, we do assignments, and I follow up with individual groups, which are the subgroups, to see how people are, progressing. So the intent over here is not to say, hey, this is what I know, take it and use it wherever you want. This is actually working with the group and say, how do we take you from point A to point B, where you can produce professional level photographs in a simplistic way. The second program, which I wanted to introduce, as I said, is the Taster program, which is a 3-day challenge, Kickstarter challenge, where we are giving a very concise idea of whole ideation, shooting, and editing over a 3-day period. So it's a Friday, Saturday, Sunday kind of a course. It's a packaged course, but it is also on a similar module of sharing information. You're going and doing a quick assignment and coming back, and next day we are improving on the product that we did on day 1 kind of thing. So again, it is for people who are getting to stretch their visualization muscle, people who are looking to introduce elements of story into their photographs, element of a unique oblique angle to their pictures in terms of their artistic photographs. That's what it is designed for. It is completely gear independent. So you could have a phone camera or you could have a DSLR, mirrorless, does not matter, because the focus is more on designing and refining the visual content that you need to create for your pictures. So here also very quickly, we are talking about first selecting subjects and stories. So again, as some of you were asking, what happens if it is a landscape picture? What happens if it is different, subject in that perspective? Yes, it is absolutely possible. So that's what we talk about. How do we stretch our visualization muscle? How do we think beyond the pictures that you're already creating? That's what we cover on day 1. And on day 2, we talk about exploiting the scene a bit more. How do we use the elements in the scene where it doesn't become a generic picture and it becomes a guesswork, like the picture on the top left? Somebody click that picture and say, look how beautiful the flower is. And it took me about 10, 15 seconds to look at, oh, okay, you're talking about this particular flower. But how can we use these elements on that particular scene to emphasize your story even more? So that's what we're going to cover on day 2. And day 3 is simple slider edits, just those 4 or 5 sliders which we talked about. So the picture on the top and the picture on the bottom both are clicked with a mobile phone. Sorry, it's a edited version of the picture on the top. The only difference is about 4 sliders, and it creates what you physically saw or what you think in your mind you saw at the time of the sunset, and it's capturing that particular picture. So this particular course is going to start on 26th, 27th, and 28th of April. 3-day course, again, 90-minute sessions online. And each day we would be doing an assignment, which takes about half an hour, 45 minutes. So that's why we do it on Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So we discuss stuff on Friday. Saturday morning, you go and do some work, some assignment, submit your pictures. We work on improving those pictures on Saturday. And then again, Sunday morning, you go and click more pictures and come back on Sunday and we do the final session on editing. One of the bonus which I given over here is to first 10 participants, I give 30 minutes of one-on-one online coaching. So this could be anything under the sun that you want to talk about in photography, whether it is reviewing your portfolio or advanced stuff that you want to hear about in terms of editing or photography or anything else. Completely open field, any question under the sun. Now, I say it is a 30-minute. I have never finished a session in less than 45, because once the discussions become artistic, it goes on. Some of the discussions have gone into 1 hour as well. Not saying that this is what we do, but yeah, it's a chance for people to take the next step if they want to, and take that one-on-one time with me. I'm going to open the questions in a very short span of time, but just quickly emphasizing on the perspective of what is the value of Zen learning, or what is the value of learning photography in the right way, right? I mean, there is nobody stopping us to go and learn, from YouTube videos or any other places. The whole point is frustration. When we are we keep clicking pictures which we are not happy with, no matter how many hours of video do you watch, if you're not getting the results that you want, there is no price for that sort of frustration. So if there is a way, and I'm not saying you just have to learn it from me, you can learn it from anybody. You have to learn it in a way that it gets you to the results you're looking for in much more efficient way without making you burn dollars in your pocket. Because the cost of bad decision, I mean, like one of the person who was in my workshop who has bought one of the Leica cameras, which is a $5,000 camera, 4 lakh rupe ka camera tha wo, which had a 20 mm fixed lens, 28 mm fixed lens, and he was clicking bird photography with that. Now, people who are into professional photography, you would know that 28 mm is not the lens for bird photography. Even a point and shoot camera person was clicking better pictures. So just imagine, because the person did not spend enough time in terms of knowing, what is their passion side, what is their, area of interest, what gear should be useful for the kind of picture which they want to click. Just one bad decision in the gear could cost you 20 times more than the price you would pay for learning photography in the right way, right? And majority of the people, the biggest setback is if you do not get the pictures what you're looking for, you end up quitting photography, which is the most sorry state of affairs. Also, not getting sidetracked, like some of you, not you, some of the people who are ask me, hey, I'm clicking landscape pictures. What is the best lens for it? My answer is I don't know. I don't know what kind of picture you want to click. You look at the picture at the top, it's clicked with a 55 mm lens, Mount Fuji. The picture at the bottom is clicked with 14 mm. The one on the right is a 44 mm. Now, what is different is the mindset of the photographer of 55 is different from the mindset of the photographer of 44. The 55 mm guy is the person who wants to look at the Mount Fuji from a distance. So he's actually standing in a city and clicking a distant view. So he needs a 55 mm lens. It is landscape photography. If you go out in the market and say, give me a good landscape photography lens, nobody would recommend a 55 mm lens to you. And on the right side is the mindset, right side bottom, 44 mm, is the photograph taken by a person who likes to go to the mountains, who likes to see mountains closely, who wears those ski suits and or the winter suits to go close to the mountains. So the person who is clicking the pictures on the right is a different photographer than the person who's clicking the pictures on the left. So depending on what your passion is, what kind of vision do you have, the gear decision will depend on that. And most of the time when we're learning photography, we spend time talking about, what camera to buy, full frame, half frame. All those questions can get answered only when you know what kind of photographer you are. What kind of pictures do you like to click? That's what tells you what kind of gear would you like to have. Because actually clicking artistic pictures is not part of the gear or some fancy tricks. It's about your ability to see those pictures, visualize those pictures, and capture them. With that, I'll put in a stop and open the floor for questions. Let me. So I have got a couple of questions. Let me just let you guys unmute yourself. So, Manju, thanks. So Raki, I shared the fee for both the courses. So the 3-day challenge is 2,000 rupees is what I talked about. I share that, right? If not, I'll put that up again. Yeah, we talked about it. The 3-day challenge is 2,000 rupees, which starts on 26th, 27th, and 28th.
Sanjeev, I have a question. Can I ask?
Yes, Ashwini, go ahead.
Okay. See, there are two questions I have. Well, see, like for a static subjects and a scene where you have a lot of time to pre-visualize, you can think. But what about in case of a very scenario which is a very high-speed action? In fact, where you don't even get the time to pre-visualize, or sometimes you don't even get time to properly frame and compose also. In such situation,
Absolutely.
like how do we,
Absolutely. Yeah. So, and that is one of the things which we talked about. It's a beautiful question, by the way. So thanks for asking it. The time of the concept of visualization is not to do it on the scene. It's a practice which we do.
on that?
It's the practice which we do on a regular basis or for a short period of time, which actually makes you much more intuitive on the day of fast action pace shots. So like if somebody is clicking, motor car racing, it's an absolute action packed high speed stuff. If you are not in position, you're going to miss the shot. Now, the point is, if you're practicing a panning and zoom shot, again, good. What's your artistic element? What do you want people to say after looking at your picture? If the answer is, I want people to say, hey, what a great capture. Fantastic. I mean, just capture the picture and come back. But if you are saying, I want to create a picture which captures either the emotion of a rider or which captures the emotion of, once the accident happened, what's the story you're going with? Those kind of things have to be taught in the regular practice sessions so that you build an intuition that, hey, now you develop an ability to anticipate the image. Like, there is a guy, I spoke to one of the guy who captures these F1 races back in Singapore. And his whole point was, he knew by the speed with which this recovery van used to go, he knew that there was an accident going to happen. How did he develop the ability? Don't ask me. It's something that you start to become intuitive about it. It's the idea of the idea of visualization is to stretch your mind, to see pictures beyond what everybody else is doing. For fast-paced action, you can't really start to say, oh, okay, इसमें ये कहानी बनाना है, इसमें ये वो नहीं कर सकते आप. In certain cases, आप वो कर सकते हो, वो आपको genre of photography allows that. But the whole point is, even this visualization is not meant to do the crack work on the time of the shooting. It's an exercise you do before so that you start to develop anticipation and intuition about what you're going to do.
See, this happens, this is feasible provided like you do that repeatedly. If you can say in first attempt, you may not get the good results. Then after, based on the learnings of the first, you may apply for the second time or third time. But there are certain cases like you're doing it for the very first time, certain time you will not be able to anticipate it, that these are the things which will happen in this particular scenario. It's only after going there and then you will realize.
Yeah, you would not, and you're absolutely right. I mean, you cannot pre-visualize all the scenarios, which is why we talk about your own mindset. Own mindset as a photographer. We keep coming back to once you click the picture, because there are a lot of photographers, and I wish I could share the examples in over there, who are going with that FOMO kind of a mindset. Hey, I'm going on a street, I want to capture everything. If I'm going to miss something, and you see that in the pictures, all their pictures that tell you the story that they're chasing the moment. I had the pleasure of speaking to Mr. Raghurai. He's become a close connection now, and he was talking about. He said, I spent 35 years of my life perfecting a minute's delay of my photographs into less than a second's delay. So in terms of, as I say, anticipation, that I sense that something is going to happen in that particular perspective. That ability gets developed over a period of time, absolutely. But what we do in the visualization muscle is first to open the doors of possibility. Because if you are going to an action scene and saying, इसमें सिर्फ एक ही shot है, panning shot आएगा, then we only have one option. Visualization में आपको 25 option दिखाए. And then you can choose कि जैसे वो war photographer ने, he's saying, I'm not clicking any war wreckage, I'm not clicking bombs and missiles, I'm capturing people's emotion. वो visualization से आया, right?
So basically, like one has to go with an open mind. One has to go with an open mind. Okay.
One has to go with an open mind, and one has to practice stretching your mind's imagination on a regular basis. तो हमारे पास बहुत सारे ऐसे concepts आते हैं जिसमें I still do a lot of time exercises कि अपने आप को एक बार जैसे challenge कर दिया कि आज सारी pictures जो है वो 20 mm से खींचनी है. That could be very mechanical level of picture. Or the second time is I actually say I take the role of an angry parent or a controlling parent. तो आज मैं जहां पे भी जाऊंगा as a controlling parent जो अपने बच्चे को देखता कि ये ठीक नहीं है, ये ठीक है, ऐसे देखो, वैसे देखो, I'll only click the pictures which fit into the role of an controlling parent. तो
Fine.
वो तरीके हैं अपनी इमेजिनेशन को वाइल्ड करने के, अपनी इमेजिनेशन को बढ़ाने के.
Fine.
There are certain exercises which we do, which help people in doing that. But excellent question. Thank you.
Okay.
Let me see if there
One
are
more
other.
question I have. See, you showed the pictures of a model who was in the garden, who she was clad in the green gown. Okay. The one she was in the garden,
Yeah,
another she was near the pond. In
yeah.
my view, the one which was in the garden, she was looking at some flowers with a curiosity. I think that one was better storytelling as compared to the one where she was sitting and posing like this.
So again, it depends on the person. That's what I said. I mean, when there are, a photographer, a storyteller, and a receiver and an audience which is coming into the picture. I mean, I clicked both the pictures. The person who took the pictures paid me much higher price for the other one, and they liked the second picture much more. So
See,
I
leave alone
chose.
the commercial aspect. Commercial aspect, let's not, but more
Yeah,
storytelling. Because
yeah,
the
yeah.
earlier one looked more natural.
There is- To you, that's the point. So when you are the person, you are taking that picture, you absolutely stop at that. I didn't say that that was the wrong picture. The kind of emotion, because it was part of a series which I was doing, the kind of emotions I was trying to convey, that one conveyed much better for my work. I felt more connected with that because it was about, so the story which I wrote along with it is the girl of 30 is meeting the girl of 16. The girl she is meeting the girl she was in 16. So there was a whole narrative that went along with it. The picture of looking at the flower didn't do it for me. So and that was one of the things which I always tell people who come into my classes. If you come with a mindset of this is right and wrong, it's not the course for you. Zen course is about you have an emotion, you want to execute it, you want to execute it in such a way that the other person can also feel the emotion. They may not get the story accurately, because one of the picture which I do with the red apple, a lot of people find it that, okay, it is a biblical story, it has that bitten apple kind of a concept. They get into the ballpark, not exactly the story which I had, but that's fine. The idea is they get the feeling that I'm trying to convey guilt, or I'm trying to convey surrender, or I'm trying to convey that. So it's about expressing yourself. It's not about right or wrong. Let me get to some other questions and I come back to you if there are more questions.
Fine.
Excellent. Thanks, Rajiv. Sandeep, do you want to unmute yourself and ask this question?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Hello, sir. Hello,
Yeah.
Sanjeev, sir.
Hi, Sandeep.
My name is Sandeep. I'm started my career. Like I want to start my career as a photographer. So like the basic question as a young student is like how to grow every day. It's like you want to grow, but you don't know how to grow. So what is your way how to grow every day?
See, I keep coming back to the diagram which I showed, that four box diagram.
Mm-hmm.
First box, especially for the beginners, is very important, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I actually have now started linking photography with spirituality. Okay.
Okay.
I actually do emotional profiles of the people based on the kind of pictures which they click. So the first thing is
Mm-hmm.
exploring your passion. What
Okay.
subjects? I mean, being observant. Actually, I tell people for 10 days, just keep your camera in the cabinet. Don't even take it out. Just go out.
Mm-hmm.
See what captivates your attention and start to see what is the pattern in there. So there are certain exercises which we do in our 3-day challenge, where it's basically
Okay.
we analyze your photo library and all that. So the idea is look for what is your passion subject. Look for what is that is making you take the camera out of your pocket, right? And then start to see what is your unique view. Once you start to make notes about this, you will suddenly start to understand what your natural tendency is. As I said, when I was starting photography, I thought I'm a people photographer. So I did click a lot of portraits. But as I said, they were technically correct, but they didn't speak to me. So then I had to dig in a little bit deeper as to when do I feel very excited? What are the times when I actually am excited taking the camera out and I'm connecting with the subject? It was when I knew that there are stories going on in the person's head, right? So exploring your passion is one subject I would absolutely suggest that you should start doing, and make some notes,
Okay.
make some observations on that. And then, of course, you will need to learn certain aspects of the craft from either from me or from anywhere else. That's a very different
Mm-hmm.
discussion. But start with your passion, because a lot of time
Okay.
when we tend to compare ourselves with the other people that, hey, somebody has clicked this picture, I want to copy that picture. Yes, you will copy it. What's so difficult?
Mm-hmm.
You just put that picture in the Google, somebody will tell you, how to click a picture like that. It's very easy to learn that.
Mm-hmm.
But the point is, are you genuinely passionate about it?
Yeah.
Do you feel connected with it or not? So stick to the subjects
Mm-hmm.
that you are connected with. Sticks to the subjects in the beginning. Later on, you can expand. In the beginning, when you're learning photography, find out what drives you, what motivates you, what inspires you, and spend a little bit of a time in that, and then start your photography journey from there.
Okay. Thank you so much, sir. It was very well said, sir. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you, Sandeep. Any other question? Raji, you said thank you for your insights. Helpful. Thank you. Thank you very much. Manju, you had a question. Which camera do you prefer for beginners? Um, it is a slightly difficult question to ask. I mean, it depends on what your aspiration is. Do you want to come online and ask this question? Anybody else has this question? Um, Rushyant, you said, what is the last day to join the course? Which course are we talking about? Are we talking about deep dive or 3-day challenge? Um, Both. So as I said, the deep dive is starting on 25th of April. The 3-day challenge is the weekend after that. So I mean, as soon as you can. I mean, if you want to avail the 30-minute free online coaching, register as quickly as possible for the 3-day course. Um, uh, but yeah, I would definitely close the deep dive registrations by 19th of April because I need 3-4 days of pre-work with the participants for the deep dive. So 19th April will be absolute deadline. However, it all depends. I mean, if we finish, I mean, we already got 7 people in there, so I think 3 or 4 spots left, or 6 people already done. I'm not too sure about that number. So I mean, if we fill the number, then we'll close the registration earlier. Otherwise, after 19th, we will not be able to take because practically I will not be able to do the pre-work with those candidates. Keerti, you had a question? You can unmute yourself.
Sanjeev, I want to enroll for your 3-day that crash course. But
Awesome.
only thing is 26th I'm traveling. So I
Okay.
will not be able to. Will you have the same one in the month of May after say 20th May? Do you have any such course?
So we haven't planned the calendar for May yet. I mean, we can let you know. However, for these courses, if there is only one day which you're going to miss, we will provide the recordings of these sessions. So you can watch the recording if it is a one day that you're missing.
Yeah.
But I mean, again, as I said, you just send in a message. We will put the link and the phone number in the group. You
Yeah.
send in a message over there, and if you want to be considered for May, we can let you know on that.
So because I will be on a travel for I'll be traveling for at least 5 to 6 days from
I understand.
20th to 26th.
I,
I will be traveling.
I understand. I understand. Absolutely. But let us know the
And
message so that we know, that thing.
for the other course also, I'm also for that 3 or 4 week course which you said, no? That I also may
Yeah.
be interested in the month of June.
Okay. Okay. So if you drop in a message, we'll in
Fine,
fact,
then I will take it from there. We'll take it from there.
awesome. Awesome. Kirti, you have a question. Kirti, you want to unmute yourself? Oh, sorry. Okay. I thought you said yes, sir. You had a question. Okay. Anybody else has a question?
Sir, can I ask you one more question?
Go ahead, Sandeep.
So like as a beginner, like if someone like even after a lot of experience, you need references. So like, can you please name some photography magazine where we can look around and find the best picture?
I mean, that's a difficult question to ask. Again, I mean, for landscape photography, it'll be different. For portrait photography, it'll be different. So, I mean, of course, Pinterest is my go-to place.
Okay.
I go in there. But as I said, you have to upgrade your skills as you grow, which is true in any business. These days, I'm getting into artificial intelligence quite a lot. So I do majority of my reference moods from AI. But Pinterest is a good tool to go to. A lot of people use 500px as well, but I find it a little difficult to make mood boards and those kind of stuff. So Pinterest will be a good place to start. You can get majority of the pictures coming in there.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Once again.
Thanks, Sandeep. Who else has questions? Gopika, thank you very much. Thank you. And again, if you have any questions about either this particular session or subsequent session or anything about photography, I mean, feel free. I'm here for another few minutes.
Excuse me. I want to talk about when we take up photos and go for tour and take some lot of photos, how we can exhibit to the people? How should we do it? How?
Sorry, मेरे को समझ नहीं आया। आप थोड़ा बताएंगे क्या पूछना
Sorry,
चाह रहे
but
हैं?
little
No,
getting tense.
That's okay.
Actually, I want to exhibit my works to the others. To I can get some name in photography field. How should we do? How should we start from it? Where I need to start it?
So, I mean, in terms of actual exhibitions of the work, it depends on what platform you're looking for, right? So, a lot of people go to photography competition kind of a route. I don't suggest this. I don't go to photography competitions. I used to go for one or two, but then once I understood what happens in photography competitions, I stopped going there. But it's still a very popular route. A lot of people take that. That is one of the options that you can do. The whole point is, once you decide what platform you want to exhibit your work on, be it social media, be it magazines, be it art galleries, whatever, you have to do a little bit of a market analysis as to what kind of pictures people accept or what kind of pictures people expect. So this is something we discuss in professional photography work to analyze the market scenarios and those kind of situations, to see what kind of pictures, what kind of subjects, what kind of stories. Like there are some stories which I do, which could be termed as religiously sensitive, right? I don't put up those pictures for exhibitions because that's not something that people will go after. So you have to do a little bit of a sense analysis as to what kind of pictures people appreciate in the platform you want to go into. Like in magazines, there is a different kind of requirement, depending on whether you want to go for editorial or you want to go for just a 2-page spread or 6-page spread. So it depends on those kind of situations. So you have to do the analysis and then work from there as to the kind of pictures that you want to create. So one quick tip is if you want to go for editorials, look for stories. Don't think pictures, think story first. Thank you. Like we did this particular story of many faces of smile. Now, once you know the story that you want to sell, you may change the story because you're not bound by the story. You can always change it. But if you have some idea of what the story is, you know what to pitch for, to different sections and different segments. So yeah, starting with a story is a good idea, and then develop, which is what we are going to do in deep dive program the last week, is about pick up a story series. And then depending on where you want to take it, whether you want to do an exhibition or you want to do, selling in an art gallery. I mean, art gallery is a very different beast altogether. But based on that, develop a story and then images according to that.
Thank you.
Thanks, Aditya. Okay. Manju, Vaishnavi, you asked a question. 16-year-old, I started my photography journey when I was 13, and I really want to explore all the photography streams, and I am just a beginner. And I didn't go for a professional classes. I'm learning in self, sir. Absolutely. I wanted to be all-rounder photographer, so achieve my goal. Give me some tips and tricks. Again, a different question. Let me see what. So give me a second. Let me just read the other question, Gopika. Almost all of my questions have been discussed. If any questions occur to me afterwards, I shall definitely ask and discuss. Thank you. I will put my Instagram account here in case people want to reach out. You can drop me a message over there, and I'll try my best to answer those questions. Vaishnavi, to you. See, it's a very difficult thing. Nobody is an all-rounder photographer. I mean, there are people who do commercial photography of every genre, but not every client sees you or anybody else as an all-rounder photographer. Not everybody. I mean, I don't consider myself as, very highly achieved kind of a person. I am a specialist photographer. So is Mr. Raghurai, who is a Padma Bhushan awardee, photographer. So is Steve McCurry. He has a particular genre. Now, you may say that, you will decide on one or two genres at a later. If you want to experience everything, absolutely go for it. It's absolutely your choice. The approach which I recommend in the Zen way of learning is pick one or two subjects while you're learning. Whether that is street photography or that is landscape or that is portrait, pick one or maximum two, learn with one or two subjects, and then grow into other areas. It will save a lot of money for you in terms of buying gear. It'll save a lot of headspace for you in terms of confusing yourself. Oh, landscape photography में ये setting करना था और portrait में ये करना था, street में ये करना था. It will lead to a lot of confusion. So my recommendation, which is what we do in Zen photography, is pick one or two areas which are close to your heart, which you feel passionate about, and then learn photography for span later on. Does this answer your question, Vaishnavi? I'll wait for her answer on the chat. In the meantime, any more question? I have still a few people. Ashwini, Monica, Tapasya, Vaishnavi, you're most welcome. Wasim, Vijayan, SKD, Devapriya. Anybody has Sanket, welcome. Any other questions? Thanks, Kirti. I'll take a look at it. And if there are any questions you have, please let me know. And Tapasya, do you want to unmute yourself and ask this in person? I want to understand, when you say you want to start selling jewelry, what do you mean? You make jewelry or you do photography for jewelry? Okay, brilliant. See, again, if you look at the advertising world these days, they're all switching to stories. I mean, I give an example of Dove, which is a luxury soap in India. If you look at their advertisements, which were running for last 8 to 10 years, they were all about pearly white skin and a beautiful woman bathing in the bathtub and very glamour, very sensual based kind of an appeal. And now they have gone to story based selling. And if you look at some of the recent ad of I Am Beautiful, which is the Dove story, where every girl next door is beautiful. I mean, there is no shame, there's no body shaming, there's no skin color shaming, there is no feeling lesser by being a certain color or certain skin type. And Dove started saying, we are behind you, So in that particular perspective, they came out with this particular story that it's the definition of beauty is not limited to certain skin color. It is empowering everybody and getting them to see what is. Majority of the brands are now switching to story-based selling. For your jewelry also, you'll probably have to come out as to, what does your product do to the people who wear it? Does it make them feel more confident? Does it satisfy their need for vanity, that they are better than the other people? Whatever the story is, you have to decide what the story you want to sell and the story which you want to pitch to your prospective clients. Once you have the story, You can then click a picture, whether you will require to, have one of your friends to pose for you or just put them on depending on the story that you like. If somebody wants to say, hey, you can afford to have a huge collection of stories if what your pitch is that it is an affordable jewelry. So, you can actually figure off clothes, cover, and then cloth is filled with of the cloth on the hangers, the jewelry. It is, it's always come out with that story. You can always come out with an angle which is a language to people that connects. So it depends on what is the USP of your product and how do you come out with a story. And I hope I'm answering the question for you also, Deva, is with that inanimate, what message that you want to convey? Like I just said, I mean, if the message is that you're having affordable jewelry, then what kind of visuals will convey that it is an affordable jewelry? Hanging them on a hanger or on various hooks along with the cupboard, the clothes in your cupboard conveys that story, right? Keeping, a necklace folded in your pocket, conveys that sort of a story. How do you capture that is a different discussion. So there is always a message, even with inanimate objects, because inanimate objects are also used by human beings. So you can always bring an element of the story, and it does not have to have a live person to communicate that. You can always figure out a different ways to tell that story. So Devapriya, I hope I answered your question as well. So just type yes if I have. Thanks, Tapasya. I mean, I'm more than happy to talk about these kind of things. I mean, ideation is always my favorite subject. So do let me know if you have more questions on this. Wasim, you asked the question, how do you decide whether a picture should be colorful or black and white? That is a holy grail question. I can share with you my process as to how I decide. Now, sometimes when I want to keep the focus solely on the light and shadow aspect of the work, where I want, because in certain stories, especially depending on the place where you're shooting, color can become a distraction. And if I want to keep the emotions pure, just in the light and shadow kind of a perspective, I'll click black and white. But in a very practical way, when the color becomes a distraction, I shoot in black and white. I haven't shot many in black and white because color is my favorite area, is my favorite subject. But the process of doing a black and white photography is different from color photography. You think differently when you're clicking black and white. A lot of people say, click it in color, बाद में जाके black and white कर लेंगे. वो हो तो जाता है, but वो emotional connection नहीं आता. Because when you're clicking for black and white, you're actually doing a play of light and shadow. So you have to click it like a play of light and shadow also. So if you look at very old movies, like the one of Meena Kumari or the one of Madhubala, you see the way their faces have been lit, the rim lighting has appeared. It's a very black and white feel because the whole focus is on the emotions of the eyes, which does not have color. So if you put strong colors around it, you're taking the attention of the viewer away from the eyes in that complicated scene. So when the color becomes a distraction in telling your story, you go black and white. I don't know if I answered your question or not. Okay, last question. Anybody? More than happy to answer.
So I want to talk about cameras.
Yeah.
Actually, I took a 4000D camera. The company name is a Canon. Actually, I don't know what to take the best camera to take to forward the course. Photography.
First take 4000D to its limit because 4000D can serve you for a long time. I shot
but
with
actually in that no videography is not there properly.
Yeah. So videography, now videography is a different element altogether.
Yeah.
So if you want to shoot videos also, again, I shoot quite a lot of my videos on mobile phone. In fact, if you go and search for one Bollywood film called Fursat, which is directed by Vishal Bhardwaj, he's clicked the whole film on iPhone 14. The whole film has been shot with mobile phones. So, I mean, gear is becoming, a secondary thing. If you are looking to shoot both video and still photography, there are certain cameras. I mean, I know Sony and Canon do have in the mirrorless version, and they are quite affordable. Like there's the one called ZVE10, which is a blogger's camera, which does both. I carry that with me for travels. It's a small little camera, and I've bought a different lens, so you can do that. But again, it all depends on what kind of pictures do you want to click. Okay, if nothing else, guys, thank you very much. Thanks for seeing. Thanks for the confirmation that your doubts got cleared. We will post the link to join both our courses, especially the 3-day challenge and the deep dive challenge. Please let me know who is of the people who are available over here. There are Ashwini. I know you asked for the deep dive course. Is there anybody else who wants the details of the deep dive course? We can send them separately. Please type yes or interested. We're not making you buy anything. We just sending information to you so that you have the information to make a decision about that. Devapriya, thank you. Thank you so much. Really appreciate. Really appreciate. If nothing else, we'll take your leave and we'll communicate in the group in terms of the upcoming sessions and take it from there. Wish you all the best, and I'm looking forward to see quite a lot of you in the upcoming sessions with me. Love to take the journey of photography with you to the next level. Thank you. Have a very good night and look forward to see you soon. Thank you.
Recording stopped.